Peace, y'all. So I want to do a quick follow-up to the last video that I did talking about hip hop, and I just, like there were some comments, and I want to first start off by saying that this channel is not about hip hop. This is not a hip hop channel. I happen to be from the hip hop generation, but my goal in talking about hip hop is a part of talking about the state of Black America. I'm a Black American. All of my family are Southerners, although I am not from the South. I wasn't born in the South. I wasn't raised in the South. My mom and all of her ancestors are from the South, Southern US, North Carolina. My biological father is from Harlem, born, raised, died in Harlem. His father is from Virginia. But there's a couple of things that I want to talk about, right? Before I go into a little bit more of the history as it relates to the Great Migration and the musical trajectory that eventually leads to hip hop. The Black American musical trajectory as it eventually leads to hip hop. But before I get there, a lot of the argument for at least the Jamaican origin of hip hop starts with Kool Herc, and I talked about that. And even though, I thought I did a decent enough job of historicizing how that wasn't the case, some other, arguments showed up in the comments, right? Some of them will say, well, the toasting of the DJs, this is all coming from Jamaican and the Jamaican parties and the big sound systems. All of this came from Jamaica. Kool Herc brought this from Jamaica to the Bronx. Okay. Toasting is the sort of like, the way I'll describe it is the sort of rhythmic talking style that the DJ does in between or, while playing records, all right? Everyone who makes the argument about toasting and the sound system, all of them, this origin story starts with two folks, Clement Oxendod and Arthur Reed. And Oxendod is mostly regarded as the one who brought the sound system and brought the publishing of music into Jamaica, like the record label, the publishing of records and all this. I haven't heard anyone disagree with this premise. And even the people who make the argument that Herc brought this into the Bronx, that's who they cite. They start with him in the 1950s. He left Jamaica to go for work on the mainland in the US. He's working in the US.
So did you mix with the Americans at all, or?
Well, at work. Yeah, at work we mix with it. And weekend, when you go partying, you mix a lot with the Americans. I came back and changed that with a lot of toasting,
Did you get that idea from America?
America, right.
Now this is the person that people say brought the sound system to Jamaica and brought the toasting, the DJ talking over the mic, as he's DJing, brought this to Jamaica, and that is where Kool Herc got it from and brought it with him to the Bronx. The man out of his mouth said, I got the toasting from the Americans while I was in the US. He was also influenced by, people who were like the style of toasting was influenced by people like Muhammad Ali, Gil Scott-Heron, the Last Poets, right? There was a rapping kind of style that Black Americans had and was known for throughout the 1960s.
They don't want us to get a power here. It's nothing but a greeting. That's all. We can't wear our bracelets in the movie. How come? How come? It's illegal, they say. It's against regulation.
The man just upped my rent last night because Whitey's on the moon. No hot water, no toilets, and no lights, but Whitey's on the moon.
And even if you pull up an old picture, like the Wailers, this was Bob Marley's group before it was Bob Marley and the Wailers. And if you look at the picture of them, their dress code, their dress in their, I believe one of their first photos or photo shoots, it is exactly like you will find any of the Motown artists' photos from that day. And they all say this, they all admit to this. None of them are denying this. So let's put this argument that Jamaicans, that the toasting and that the big sound system was a Jamaican invention. It was not. It wasn't. Like, you can't go, like, I can't go beyond that. I can't go beyond that. Those honorable men, man, those honorable Jamaican men are telling the truth. We got it all from the Black Americans. That's not a slight on them, because they took it and they reshaped it and they made it their own. And they produced something that was completely new. I'm not saying that they mimicked and like they you know, like a lot of the Europeans do, like the Beatles and these people, and they just straight up and down take and then just put it out there like as if it was their own. And it's like, bro, this is a straight up and down copy. Nah, the Jamaicans didn't do that. And we can't take that away from them. They took the blueprint and they made it their own based on their swagger, based on their codes. You know what I'm saying? How they move, how they talk, right? They reinvented it. They created something else, and it has done nothing but evolved. No Black American has ever tried to commandeer what the Jamaicans created, even though we know how it started and where it started. All right. The idea that the the Puerto Ricans has something to do with the creation of hip hop is just,
Yeah, what year did you get into did you start rapping, Ruby D?
Late 76, early 77.
76, 77. Mm-hmm.
The Furious Five were still the three MCs.
So if we go by the timeline of 73 and y'all is the first Puerto Ricans, that means that hip hop was going for at least 3 years before any Puerto Ricans touched the hip hop soil, correct?
Pretty much.
Correct.
I would say that.
I'm old enough to remember a time, and I grew up in a community that was full of people from the Caribbean and people from Cape Verde and from other parts of the world. So people, and this is important. Growing up like someone born in the 70s and growing up throughout the 80s and the 90s even, a lot of the people who were outwardly Black, especially if they were Black, even if they were Afro-Caribbean, right? A lot of them didn't tell you, they didn't reveal that they were from an island. They would conceal that. And so when a lot of them came to the US and to the mainland, they became part of the dominant culture, the Black culture, because this is, where they were funneled into. They didn't integrate with the white folks. They didn't integrate with white folks. You ain't going over there. Even the Puerto Ricans, even the Latinos who could pass for white, y'all weren't allowed over there. And so the point I'm trying to make with this is that something happened. Something happened that caused a switch to happen. Meaning that, all of a sudden, I can kind of remember too, like around the 1990s, right? You started to see a lot of folks who didn't necessarily claim to be anything. Like if they were Black, you just thought they were Black. If they were Latino, in my case, and I'm talking like as a young kid growing up, if they were Latino, we just assumed that they were Puerto Rican, right? We just made these assumptions. We didn't know like the nuances because for whatever reasons. But then I think because Black Americans have been under siege since the Civil Rights Movement, in the sense that so much of what we've done for this country and in this country is not being discussed and is systematically being erased. So you see when breaking is mentioned, whether it's in the Olympics and whatnot, you see the representation of Puerto Ricans. And then, like there was a celebration at the White House of hip hop where the theme is that Jamaicans were the ones who, started this. And so people are starting to run with these mainstream notions that are fundamentally disinformative. And the people who were historically our allies, in this case, Jamaicans and folks from the Caribbean, Puerto Ricans, etc., are now starting to feed into those lies and disassociate themselves. That's my opinion. That's how I see it. That's the only thing I could come up with. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more, but let's just leave it right there. But one thing that I learned from reading the comments and even reflecting on what I said, I realized that there is a disconnect. I asked myself, I said, where is this disconnect coming from? Why is it that people, right, even smart people, there's a guy who has a doctor in front of his name. You can't muster up more of a retort than that. I think he was Puerto Rican. I was like, man, you gotta come better than that. And this is what I realized. And part of it has to do with our failed and failing school networks who don't teach history, who don't teach sociology, right? Who don't teach any kind of cultural studies of note, who don't teach geography. Our school system does a horrible job of just basic education. And don't get me started, but that's by design. That's not an accident. Because what's missing here is the fact that so many New Yorkers, for example, right? They're nostalgic about hip hop. I mean, they're like, especially if they're from anywhere in New York, the Bronx especially, but like just New York in general. They are territorial about it. They swear up and down it don't belong to nobody. Like they're so ahistorical about this music. They're so ahistorical. They think that hip hop started in a vacuum. It doesn't start in a vacuum. And again, I blame our educational system for doing a really bad job of allowing us to think and connect dots. So let me connect some dots for y'all. The Great Migration is the largest mass movement of people anywhere in the world. It is the mass movement of 10 million Black Americans from the South across the country, which includes places like New York City, Chicago, Detroit, LA, Oakland, San Francisco Bay. From states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kentucky, etc. Right? Now, remember the movie Sinners? Ryan Coogler's movie, phenomenal movie. It's been out long enough, so if I give it away, it don't matter. So people should have saw it by now. But in any case, so the two twins, the brothers, both are played by Michael B. Jordan. It's a great camera work to have him appear as two different individuals at the same time. But in any case, these two brothers, these twins, leave the Mississippi Delta in the 1930s for Chicago, and immediately find themselves in the mix, start moving and shaking with some of the mafioso, from the mob folks in Chicago. They make a lot of money and they start, I guess, throwing parties or whatever, or like they have close ties to the Delta Blues guys from Mississippi, because they from Mississippi. And this is like, when the Delta Blues leave Chicago, it kind of blows up in Chicago and created this whole new scene of Black music. This is what the movie Sinners is doing, right? 1950s, 1960s, what happens? Right next door, Detroit. You got what? You got Motown. Motown's biggest artists are all, if not themselves from the South, their parents and their grandparents are from the South. They're all influenced by Southern music. They're all influenced by Southern gospel music. They're all influenced by people like Muddy Water. They're all influenced by the rock and roll, the sounds that are coming out of the South. All of this is what is driving the Motown sound. This is 1950s, 1960s. All right, now let's go back down south. Let's go to Tennessee. Let's go to Tennessee. Why? That's where Stax Records come from, right? Which was founded in Tennessee in 1957. People like Otis Redding, people like Al Green. This is what's coming out of Tennessee. This soul, this rhythm and blues, this something that's very distinct from what's happening in Chicago, and even more distinct from what's happening in Motown, right? Right? These are the sounds that's coming out. And then let's go up to Philadelphia. Late 60s, early 70s, right? Gamble and Huff and the Philadelphia sound. So now, with the culmination of this rich musical history that I am only scratching the surface on, I'm just pointing out a couple of regions. I'm not even talking about the music that's off the West Coast in the 60s and in the 70s, who are also Black Americans from the South. I'm gonna skip over, right, to the 1970s, the early 1970s, because all of this rich music, and that ain't even including the people who are still in the South, who didn't go up to Memphis, who didn't go up to Chicago, who didn't go up to Detroit, who didn't go to the West Coast, and the folks that are still in the South making music, like James Brown, like Sam Cooke, like the Commodores in Alabama, right? James Brown from Georgia, Georgia boy, the main influencer of hip hop, dance and sound. If you don't connect these dots in this way, you look at hip hop through this narrow lens, and you look at hip hop as if it was created in a vacuum, as if something that was happening in New York City was specific to New York City, but it wasn't. The racism, the police brutality, all of that started in the South. This is why Southerners left the South to begin with. And it's also why they couldn't understand when NWA was on record saying "F the police." Because they were all dealing with the same thing. In Detroit, in Chicago, they were all Southerners who left the South and went up north and thought that things would be different, and then they found that it wasn't. The most important element of this argument is the continuum of hip hop dominance in the hands of Black Americans, not just on the, like it's almost like it almost migrated away from the East Coast for a long time. Like, you know, yeah, it was the birth of it was birthed on the East Coast, but it has migrated away from the East Coast. The South has it in the chokehold. But see, the point is, hip hop is influenced by all of this music, all of this cultural tradition, none of which is coming out of the Caribbean. Hip hop was inevitable. It was inevitable. It was the next wave of Black music, building off the Black music that came before it. That's what it was, and that's what it is. We have to claim that. We have to claim that, because otherwise, you know what? They're gonna be. We already see they're trying to do it. They're gonna be given rap music like they kinged Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. They're gonna be kinging some white boy, the king of hip hop. We're gonna sit there and let them. Y'all better get y'all facts together, man. For those that are real true allies, you know, to Black Americans, we salute you. And for those who have crossed over, we see you. It is what it is. But I can tell you one thing, they'll never love you, respect you the way you think and hope that they will. Don't sleep on that. Peace, y'all.
Word up, quick to set it, don't wet it. Real niggas lick shots, peace, Connecticut. Now yo,
what up, yo? Time is running out, it's for real though. Let's connect politics, ditto. We can change places, lifted in the staircase.